that one point, that one nerve that you just don't touch around here.
Oh, we got to poke at it.
Maybe they just need to come rub my bald head for good luck.
This is the first game I'm going to predict A-State to win. This is the very first game I have A-State going to win.
If Stony Brook comes into Jonesboro, aka J Vegas, and defeats the Red Wolves, I probably won't go back to ESPN, the control room after that one. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome back to Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan. Here, sitting to my right is the one, the only, the number one in your program, number one in your heart, the real MVP, Cooper, the Juice Box Melda.
Thank you, Tristan. I'm doing great today. You know, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. We have such a sophisticated handshake. It's
Yes,
just great. It's Tuesday, so that can only mean one thing. It's
Yes.
time for everybody's favorite ASU-TV show, Red Wolf Roundtable.
I mean, it's the best show on ASU-TV. I mean, who could miss it? And if you saw before our open that amazing commercial hype video, I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
Yeah,
because
shout out to
we're
Kinsey.
gonna win.
Shout out to Kinsey. We're gonna win. Round of applause, but we do have a little bit of sober news before we send it to James. Our second news desk correspondent, Hannah Hatfield, she is out due to illness today, so we do want to send our prayers and our thoughts and concerns to her. Hopefully she can get well soon so that she can be back next week. But Cooper, speaking of James and Hannah,
Yes.
it's already that time of the
It's
show.
time.
It's time to send it to everybody's favorite person, James Lowry. James?
What's up, brothers? It's been a great day. How are y'all today?
We're good. I'm
Doing
happy
great.
you're here.
Yes, and we miss you, Hannah. I'm sorry I have to sit over here by myself, but I'll see you next week. I'm going to check on you after the show. So y'all ready to get into some A-State volleyball?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right. On Thursday, the Red Wolves had a doubleheader at the Bear Invitational at Missouri State University. In the first match, Arkansas State won with a score of 3-1 over Western Illinois. In the second match, the Red Wolves also added a win to the win column by defeating Linwood 3-1. On Friday, Arkansas State faced the host team, which is Missouri State Bears. The score of that match was another 3-1 victory for the Red Wolves. A-State concludes their road trip this weekend as they begin the Sun Belt Conference play at Georgia Southern. The first serve will take place at 5 p.m. on Friday and noon on Saturday. You can watch it on ESPN Plus and the EAB Radio Network.
James, who has been that player that stands out to you that's been kind of leading the charge for the volleyball team so far?
It's been Kaylin Whitlock as of late. She was the MVP of this tournament this past weekend. She had 36 kills over 2 matches, 22 kills in that first game, and she had 14 in that second game. So she really carried this A-State offense over this past weekend.
You know, James, I know we're just getting started with football. We're in the middle of September. But what about basketball? I know me and Tristan, we are excited. We are ready for the season to get starting. So what's the news on them?
So I'm glad you asked, Coop. When they're not going through military training, they're gearing up for the University of San Diego in the Acrisure Invitational on November 24th. The time has yet to be determined. They will begin their regular season open against the Wisconsin Badgers on November 6th. Moving over to the women's side, with 8 returning players and 6 newcomers, they will start their season against South Dakota State University. The Red Wolves have 8 non-conference games this season. They will host a program record 17 home games, 9 of those within the Sun Belt Conference. Their first home game is November 9th against Northern Illinois in the MAC Sun Belt Challenge. Then the first home game will be against Arkansas on November 17th. So guys, it's a big rival for us. Arkansas State, Arkansas. They were in Bud Walton last year. I had the opportunity to go to that game. What do we need to do this year to show that we are a team to be reckoned with?
Well, James, I mean, you bring up a good point. You were actually there in person in Fayetteville, so you kind of have a better knowledge of what happened than most people that didn't watch the game. But if you go back and you kind of read and kind of watch the last game, a lot of it was a kind of won and lost by the three-point shot. You know, last season we had a kind of a sharpshooter in Jade Upshaw, who's now transferred to the University of Central Arkansas. We hope all good things for her in her season. But it was kind of one of those things where we almost had them. I mean, we had them for a point, and then, you know, just the experience and the size, they kind of ran their course. But this year, I really think we have what it takes to put the shock factor in beating the Razorbacks.
Yes, and one thing, it is at home, but you're going to want to keep the crowd out of the game. And you may be saying, Cooper, why you're saying that it's a home game, but if you go flashback 2 years ago, our freshman year, I was at when Arkansas came here to play us. And you know what? The crowd was dominated by Razorback fans. So we need our fans to show up, show out. We need the student section there, and we need to get our fans into the game so we don't have a hog call going on by the third quarter starts.
Right, and you know, looking at kind of the roster now that we have, and I kind of want to get you guys' opinions on this, but who are maybe some impact players for the start of this season?
Man, go ahead.
You can go ahead, James.
Yeah, James, go ahead.
I got a whole list. Of
Okay.
course, we've got the SBC newcomer in Izzy Higginbottom.
Right.
She won the newcomer award last year. Lauren Pendleton, junior this year. Malin, Kiara Ellis, and even Melody Kapinga, who came back from last year. We have a roster of veterans, as I would say, to really give the Arkansas Razorbacks a run for their money this year.
Yes.
Yeah, Cooper, what about you? What do you think about impact players?
Obviously, you got to mention Izzy Higginbottom. I
Right.
mean, she's going to be our team captain this year, in my opinion. She's going to be the one to knock down the shots when are needed, and we saw it later on the season when they went on that winning streak. As well as you have Lauren Pendleton and Melody Kapinga. Melody Kapinga, she has the height for a player that can go up, get rebounds, and be a great center. So if we can get that three-headed monster trio going, I think they might cause problem in the Sun Belt Conference.
Right, and you know, there's two real good players that you guys are also leaving out there, and that's Anna Griffin, who
Yes.
hit a clutch shot in the Sun Belt Conference tournament last season, but also the transfer from the University of Louisiana Monroe, Bree Sutton, who, if you remember, is kind of a viable shooting option too,
Yes.
because she did knock down a bunch of threes with her time at ULM, and she did kind of make our defense pay when we wasn't closing out with our hands up. But, you know, James, I kind of want to just ask this, you know, what does Coach Rogers need to do to keep that winning mentality as well as the whole mannerism of nets ain't free?
Well, that's a good question, Tristan. Honestly, she just needs to keep the girls bought into what her vision is for this season. Like, I feel like last year, you know, when you lose a couple games in a row, you kind of lose your morale. But if they play well and they stick to what their plan or their scheme is for this season, I feel like they will be fine. If they really just buy in, bond together, and really just keep their chemistry intact, win or loss, it does not matter. Just stay bought into what Coach Rogers is saying, and I think they'll be fine.
You know, I'm going to say this one thing real quick. Just, we saw it last year. She challenged her players. She said they don't have the heart, and they went on that win streak. They buy in, they're going to win under Coach Rogers.
Yeah, Cooper, you and James made great points, but unfortunately, we're out of time for this first segment. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to recap some Stony Brook. Stick around, guys. You're watching Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to Westside football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. And guys, the Red Wolves won this past weekend,
did.
so it saves everybody from a 45-minute long rant. I am glad they won.
Yeah, I am ecstatic. We won 31-7, and you know what? You're gonna see it on here. We ran the dang ball, Tristan. If you remember last week, I said quit with the trick plays, Butch, run the dang ball. And you're looking at it, 357 rushing yards.
Yeah, and those rushing yards were amounted to by 2, maybe 3 running backs in Jaquez Cross and your favorite running back on the roster, Zach Wallace. But you're looking at the stats, Cooper, and you're really thinking, okay, we really beat them statistically in every category but time of possession. They had the ball longer than the Red Bulls did. And that's nothing to fear. Sure, you want to get quick 3 and outs, but the way our defense was able to kind of manhandle the Stony Brook offense, yes, I get they're an FCS school, but when you play an opponent, it doesn't matter if they're FCS, it doesn't matter if they're D2, they're still a college football team at the end of the day.
Yes.
So defense, they were able to kind of do their thing. Malik Straker, he was able to really forefront that offense. They were kind of able to load the box a little bit. But the thing I want to talk about most, and with the Stony Brook recap, is who really, realistically, looking at the stats, looking at our game logs here, who really was your player of the game?
I mean, I could go with the basic and obvious answer in Jaquez Cross. I mean, why wouldn't I? He rushed for over 164 yards. But really, this might shock some people. We're seeing it now. Just Jaquez Cross, Zach Wallace, they were dominant. Just the two-headed running back tag team, main event type deal. But my really go-to guy, I have to give it to Jalen Raylor, the true freshman. I mean, he came in when we were stalling at 17-0 and got 14 more points on the board. And if you're not thinking about it, if Stony Brook does not miss those 3 field goals, it's 9-17 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Cooper, we do kind of have a little bit of a controversy on who the starting quarterback is. I mean, you're seeing it on screen now, the 2 quarterbacks that played against Stony Brook. Jalen Rayner, Jackson Daly. Jackson Daly was able to start the game because of Shrout's injury to his ankle. Daly went 7 for 17, 62 yards, didn't throw a touchdown. And Jalen Rayner, the redshirt freshman, he still has 3 games to play to keep his redshirt eligibility. But I want to point this out real quick before we carry on. The fact that a freshman quarterback came in and was able to do what he wanted when we've seen both quarterbacks, one that has had SEC-level experience and the other who's kind of been in the program for over a year and kind of knows how Bush likes his offense, is kind of more eye-opening than the casual fan realizes, because when you have a former player of the year in North Carolina, to Rayner's respect, you don't think off rip that a guy coming in, running quarterback, is going to be able to kind of manipulate his way around the defense in this Butch Jones-style offense, this Keith Heckendorf-style offense. But I want to go back to last year real quick. When we were talking about James Blackman, we said if James Blackman wanted to have more success, he would have to be able to run the ball. And we've seen Jalen Rayner come in. He was able to throw, and he was able to run, and he found a lot of success. So in my eyes, that proves us right.
Yes, and with Jalen Rayner, you have to think, if somehow they say, you know what, screw his red shirt, we're going to start him for the rest of the year, does the offense change? Because you're coming into Arkansas State. When you think of Arkansas State, you're thinking of the spread offense, high-flying, throwing for 500 yards a game type deal. That's how you win your games. But if we go back to our stats from last week against Stony Brook, we barely broke 100 yards passing and almost had 300 yards. We had almost 400 yards rushing. We had 357 rushing yards. And if we bring in Jalen Rayner, do we go more into the spread options type of offense? I mean, if you look at the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, they run that spread option beautifully. They'll run the read option with quarterback, running back. The next thing you know, quarterback keeps it, the running back takes it, or they can pass it. Do we see an offensive style of change if Rayner gets the start?
Well, and we were talking about Jalen Rayner being able to run the ball a little bit too, and I want to kind of read some stats off real quick for you guys. And the 3 top rushers for the Arkansas State Red Wolves against the Stony Brook Sea Wolves, almost called them the Sea Lions.
What is a Sea Wolf?
See, it's something in Vancouver. I don't know. The Canadians have their own deal going on. I don't know.
They have the wrong bacon, by the way.
That's a headache in itself. We'll have to talk about that later. But in the 3 top rushers for the Arkansas State Red Wolves, Jaquez Cross had 166 yards with only a 2-yard loss, 2 touchdowns. His longest run was for 66 yards. Then you look at Jalen Rayner and Zach Wallace. They were actually able to have the same amount of rushing yards. While, yes, Zach Wallace did have a touchdown run, Rayner was able to beat him out on the longest run category where he had a long of 32, and his average run per carry was at 6.3. So we've talked about this before, and we're going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back up now. The evolution of the offense in Division I college football, in Sun Belt football, in SEC football, and whatever football you want to talk about, over the rainbow, reading rainbow, you have the running quarterback very able to manipulate his way around a defense. It's just the way college football is. You know, we haven't seen a very mobile quarterback at Arkansas State for a long time, if not ever. But I want to pose this question to you, and James, if you're listening, you could pop in if you want to. But is a rushing quarterback what this offense has missed for the past couple seasons?
James, take it away. You look like you have a bunch to say.
Definitely. That is the epitome of college football today. If your quarterback cannot run or get outside of the pocket when a defense is pressuring you and collapsing the pocket, you are in trouble. It just makes your offense a lot more better and a lot more efficient. Because if your quarterback can get down the field, you're going to be hard to stop regardless. Because you have to worry about a running back, a quarterback, receiver. You have, like the defense, your mind is all over the place because you're trying to keep him within the pocket. So, yes, it's an asset for your offense.
And, I mean, if you're looking at the NFL today, you look at some of the highest paid quarterbacks. You have Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and even Joe Burrow. And while they're out there, they can sling the ball 60 yards downfield in the air. They can get out of the pocket. They can move around and make plays happen. I mean, the best example is Patrick Mahomes. You'll see him break out of the sack and throw a crazy pass behind the pack. Shout out, Easton. I know.
Yeah, you just made Easton the happiest man in Arkansas State.
Yeah,
right now.
but, I mean, you see him being able to make plays happen when something's dead. You're seeing it with Lamar Jackson. People called him a running back, but he is a great quarterback. Jalen Hurts, he's able to be strong, move downfield with his legs because that's the new style of football. You can say, well, if you keep running, your quarterback's going to get hurt. Quarterbacks are built different nowadays. I mean, I'm going to say on Jalen Hurts real quick, he can bench over, I think, 500 pounds it was. Wow. I can't even squat. That's big leg boy.
Where did Jalen Hurts go to college?
Alabama and Oklahoma.
Exactly. He didn't go to Arkansas State, so we're going to move on. But, and you bring up a good point. I'm not going to lie, and I don't mean to sound rude, but, that's kind of the premise of the show is we talk about only Arkansas State. Yes, it's a great comparison, but just looking at the Arkansas State side of things, because I don't think we'll ever have a quarterback that can squat 500 pounds. But in today's day and age, kind of like James and Cooper said, piggybacking off of them real quick before I move on to my next thing, if you're able to run the ball, we saw it last year with a plentiful of Sun Belt Conference schools when we struggled last season. The running of the legs breaks your defense down because you got guys going into zones, you got them going to mans, and I know I'm sounding like Cooper, my analyst, when I say this, and I'm going to blow some minds. But when you have a defense, you have 11 guys on defense. Everybody knows that. But when you have guys, shut up. When you have guys going into coverage, whether it's a zone read or it's a man, whatever type of coverage you're running, and you only have 3 to 4 guys up front, the big boys, the big guys, and you get that quarterback around, you're looking at a maybe 5-yard run if you have guys playing up, making 20 to 30-yard rushes.
Yes. And with Jalen Rayner being a mobile quarterback, making an open field tackle is one of the hardest things to do in football on the defensive perspective because you have your D lineman trucking straight up field, and when that quarterback gets outside the pocket, they're now having to turn around and get him. 9 times out of 10, they're not Aaron Donald. They're not going to get him.
Right.
So he gets around, and now you're looking at a corner secondary perspective of it, you're having to get off your man who you're just running downfield and completely change directions and go rally make the tackle, which is, if you don't have the right guys, it's going to be tough and you're going to have problems. So running quarterback is what you need in college football today.
Yeah, Cooper, and we're going to take a short break real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk about a confidence booster. But stick around, guys. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV.
At Arkansas State, we want you to go. Go where learning soars, takes flight, and rockets ahead. Go for experiences, internships, and scholarships. We want you to go. Become A-State Maine. Are you ready to go? Go.astate.edu for details.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV, and kind of piggybacking, continuing our conversation before we went to break real quick. How does the win against Stony Brook help our confidence?
I mean, it definitely boosted up. We finally got that win. I mean, losing 73-0, then 37-3 against Memphis. You're at the low of all lows, and now you're thinking, if somehow we lose this game, there's no confidence. But getting on the board, we scored that first touchdown. We got that out of the way. We're not counting quarters until we've scored a touchdown. We got that out of the way. So the confidence is there. And if you think about it, we haven't played a conference game. What we want is still right in front of us. We can still go out and win the Sun Belt Conference. That's not out of question. We're 0-0 in conference. If we come in right now, we can start in 1-0 in conference and be at the top. And all that talk of us being the worst team in college football goes away immediately.
Right. And, you know, while we talked about the confidence booster, we do have sort of a deal that we got to get into. And the quarterback room has a deal of a pickle they have to get it, deal pickle, they have to get through. We have three, not two, but three vital options at starting quarterback. Now, I know a lot of people are saying they want Jalen Rayner starting Saturday. I know other people that are wanting Jackson Daly to start Saturday. But I think the thing that we can all agree on is that the JT Shrout project is now officially over. In his 2 starts, he didn't do jiggity squat. So now we're moving on to Daly and Rayner. So I'm going to ask you, Cooper, and James, I'm going to ask you this as well, so get ready. If you were Butch Jones or if you were Keith Heckendorf looking at the 2 liable quarterbacks, who are you starting Saturday against Southern Miss? Are you starting Jalen Rayner or are you starting Jackson Daly? Cooper will start here and then James will go to you.
I'm starting off the game with Jalen Rayner. I mean, he's proven it in his little time, and I think he just fits the offense better. But if he doesn't do what he needs to do, bring in Jackson Daly, because like we're saying, he's been around the system. He knows the offense. So Jackson Daly, I see him as a liable backup.
Yeah, and James, you know, kind of same thing to you. If you were in that spot, looking at what you know now, who are you giving the nod to?
I'm giving it to Rayner. I'm looking at his stats. He had nine rushes, 57 yards. You're the third string?
Yes, third string.
You're the third string quarterback, and you come in rushing 9. You have 9 rushes for 57 yards, and you get a passing touchdown. So you played well. Like, you're proving to Butch that, hey, I can be out on this field. So I would give him another shot. And we got to win. They rubbed my bald head.
Yes, they did. The bald head.
I told you if they rubbed my bald head, they would win. Hey, do it again this week. So if they go with Rayner, I feel like they'll have a great chance of beating Southern Miss this week.
Right, and kind of, you know, going into a little bit more real quick, and you talked about Rayner being able to throw the pass touchdown, but we've seen the struggles of the 3 receivers, Tanell Bryant, Corey Rucker, and Jeff Foreman, and they were actually able to, in my opinion, kind of flow better and catch, you know, being able to get the ball better when Rayner was throwing it to them. So do you think that's just a communication deal, or where do you think that kind of line comes into where maybe Daly's not hitting them like Rayner is?
Well, for one thing I saw, JT Shrout, he would underthrow him. Jackson Daly, it felt like that connection, they were just not clicking on it. He kept overthrowing guys and just, yes, you had that one big play from Jeff Foreman with that 42-yard reception, but it felt like it was a short pass. Jeff Foreman made all those yards himself. When Rayner came in, the offense, for some reason, offense started clicking. I feel like there's maybe a connection, some, I guess, team chemistry in the locker room that we technically aren't seeing. We may see it on the depth chart, he's third string, but in the locker room, there's something about that team chemistry with his wide receivers that he's doing right. And it could be quarterback just saying, hey, get my wide receiver core. Let's go out to dinner tonight. Let's get that chemistry up. Maybe that's what Rayner's doing right now.
Right, and you know, since he is kind of a younger deal, I'm curious if it's maybe the receivers teaching him how they want the ball, how they want the ball thrown to them, and what kind of passes they like more than others. Because let's just be real here. When you're trying to scramble out of the pocket and you're pointing down at receivers trying to get them to do a different route or kind of come back to the ball, 9 times out of 10, the more connection you have, the better well off you're going to be, and it's going to make more sense for the receiver to automatically do it. But, you know, James, kind of going back to you too, I want to kind of see what your kind of take is on it, because I know you kind of have not a better relationship than we do with kind of some of the guys on the football team, but I know you're a man that knows everybody. You're kind of the most famous man here at Arkansas State, so I want to see what you think as well.
Don't believe that, people. My thing with the receiving, I kind of, before you guys started talking about it, my mind was like, I feel like they underperformed just a little bit. I mean, Foreman, 1 catch, 42 yards, you know, Courtney Jackson, 2 receptions, 33 yards, a touchdown. He's the only receiver that scored in that game as far as, like, receiving. And I just feel like we aren't getting the yards that I know we can get. And like you guys said, with Rayner, when he got in the game, he did start getting the ball to those guys. And so they did start performing better. So my thing is this week, can that continue? Can they get more yardage? Can they get more receptions?
Yeah, and I mean, you make a good point. The thing is with how this offense is kind of being built, and trust me, it still feels like it's being built in front of our eyes as viewers, as people that break this team down. It feels like they're still building it, and it's not 100% in motion. But we talked about the passing game a little bit, and I want to talk about a possibility of them becoming a Titan-like offense where they're running the ball 95% of the time, where they're giving it to Wallace on a reverse, or they're giving it to Cross on the inside run, or even giving Jalen Rayner the quarterback power or draw where he's kind of going around the outside. But looking at some of the different options and outcomes for this team, do you think it would be smart going into the first conference game to switch to a more running offense?
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because 357 rushing yards. You found something that finally worked. The past 2 weeks before Stony Brook, you were trying to find that offensive mindset. What is going to be the offense this year? Because the passing game obviously is not working. Our wide receivers, they have been underperforming. You can blame quarterback, but it takes 2 to get a reception. So with the running, we have a 2-headed monster with Jaquez Cross and Zach Wallace. You have Jaquez Cross, who's going to break those 50-yard runs, and you have Zach Wallace. When you get in the red zone, he's going to truck over a dude and get you those much-needed yards in the touchdown. So I think might as well. We're in year 3 of the Butch Jones era, and we're still trying to do what the past coaches did here at Arkansas State, which was throw the ball. That obviously it ain't working. So run the ball. Just run it. Run it!
I mean, hey, there's always an option. They could call up their old friend B.E. down there at the West Side Football and say, hey, let me get some plays from you.
Do not run the power eye. No, do not run the – if you show out in the power eye, I'm going home.
Oh, we love the power eye. Not really.
Do.
But, you know, and I want to pose this question too. With Southern Miss, and we're going to dive more into it here in a little bit, but looking at it from an outsider point of view, looking from this this booklet right here from their game against Tulane, which, again, we'll get into later. Just kind of flipping through it. The one thing that poses to me is, and I know you're going to like this because we're just talking about running backs, Frank Gore Jr., the man who is the son of a former first-round NFL draft pick, the guy that was on Miami, whose father was on Miami when Miami was them.
The U.
The U. Shout out Rock. I don't have my Rock shirt on anymore, but sorry, dummy.
Yeah.
Okay, but looking at Frank Gore Jr., he's not even the running back one.
No, he's RB2.
Yes. And, again, I just want to point that out because when we come back, I do want to talk more into that and kind of look at some conference predictions and standings. But, Cooper, real quick, before we send it to break, what do you think about Frank Gore being running back 2? And in one sentence, what do you think?
Crazy.
Crazy?
Crazy.
That's not a sentence, but I'll take it. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the Southern Miss game, some SBC conference standings, and more about why Frank Gore Jr. is a questionable running back 2. Watch Red Wolf Roundtable when we come back here on ASU-TV.
ASU-TV, shows like Red Wolf Roundtable, ASU-TV News, Westside Football, and more. Gain real-life experience while doing what you love. Get involved with ASU-TV today.
Hi, welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. We were talking before we went to the break about Frank Gore Jr. being running back 2. And Cooper,
yes.
Now that you have more than just one word,
okay,
what do you think about it?
I think he's really he got brought in. He had a great year last year, and he did the mistake of not taking his talents to the NFL. In my opinion, I feel like, yes, you want to get all the experience you can in college, and it's controversial. You need to get your college degree. Yes, it's important and all. But we saw him do so well last year. He was on ESPN, his famous interview, Auntie Chill. But he has all the talent to go to the NFL, and I feel like he's kind of getting his time wasted here in Southern Miss, because if he could go to the NFL and get really just working out, being better, getting stronger, he would be perfect. But he stayed another year, and now he's kind of getting overshadowed. So, you know what? That's okay. If he's not going to be RB1, I'm okay with that, because last year he gave Arkansas State some problems.
Yeah, Cooper, and we were able to fortunate enough to get some highlights from the Southern Miss Tulane game. Speaking of Frank Gore Jr., there he is. But, looking at some preseason conference standings before we dive into this game, Southern Miss actually was predicted to finish 4th in the division with Arkansas State, who was predicted to finish 6th. Not last, it's ahead of our little brother ULM, but it's still not number 1 where Arkansas State needs to be. And over on the east side, of course, James Madison number 1, App State number 2, the Coastal Fried Chicken at 3, Marshall followed by Georgia Southern, Georgia State, and ODU. But, just looking at the Southern Miss game a little bit, as you're seeing the highlights from that game on screen, they actually lost this game 21-3, as you're seeing a good sack there by the Tulane defensive line. But the thing really I want to point out most about that game is Frank Gore actually threw a pass. We don't have that highlight, but looking at the rushing game, Rodriguez Clark and Frank Gore, they both were the number 1, number 2 option. They both kind of didn't have a great game. Rodriguez Clark actually being the transfer from Memphis, who actually played here in Jonesboro back in 2021, where they won 55-50. But Cooper, just looking at this Southern Miss team from the game highlights that we have in front of us, what is kind of the number 1 kind of show point that you want to go to first?
Looking at Southern Miss's defense, they do not impress me. I know they played a great team in Tulane, but they just do not impress me at all. They only got 3 sacks all games. There's no quarterback pressure. So if their D-line is not able to get in the backfield, that just opens up our offense so much more. The run game can get going. The pass game can finally get going. So if their defense, we can attack the holes in their defensive line, we might start off the year 1-0.
Yeah, and you make a good point. And the thing that I kind of want to switch to is the offensive side of the ball. And, I've kind of looked at some different things for this Southern Miss team. And the one key thing that kind of opens my eyes a little bit is the amount of limitation the offensive line has when it comes to protecting the quarterback. Now, don't get me wrong, Arkansas State's offensive line is not the greatest. It's not the greatest offensive line in the world. But when you're looking at Southern Miss's offensive line, my calculations are in my notebook. I don't have my notebook with me. Sorry, I'm not the smartest person in the world. Dummy.
Yeah.
But it took the opposing defensive line about 2.5 seconds to get in the backfield, to get their hands in the face of the quarterback. Now, I'm no football coach. I love to think I am on NCAA 14, but in fact, that is a video game, not real life. Because, in fact, I'm like a 20-time national championship winner on NCAA 14. But when you have an offensive line and you have an offense with a prominent running back in Frank Gore Jr., and the quarterback is getting pressured in 2.5 seconds from your offensive line, it's not necessarily what you like to hear. Now, they do have other issues that I'm sure they're going to correct in practice before the game, but just ahead of the quick deals real quick, I do want to point out the fact that this Southern Miss team is not as good as last year's Southern Miss team.
We should have beat Southern Miss last year.
We should have beat them last year. But the key thing I want to say here is that it's a tag team match. Shout out my wrestling people, Mr. Sullivan, my boy Louie. Love and miss you, Louie. Kisses to Great Britain. But it's a running back tag team match. You got Rodriguez Clark and Frank the Tank Gore Jr. taking on Zach Wallace and Jaquez the Man Cross.
Yes.
And if I was the writer for that match, I would have, of course, Jaquez Cross and Zach Wallace going over clean.
Yes.
But it's going to be a testament of time, and it's going to be good to see. That was the dumbest thing I ever could have said. But it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this game kind of opens up the first couple of drives, because the first couple of drives kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yes, they really do. We're going to see it now. Hey, we're not averaging 1.5 points per game anymore. We're averaging 11, and we do allow 39 points per game. But if you're looking at Southern Miss, they give up 33 points per game. And besides the rushing yards, we're honestly evenly matched. This is an evenly matched game, and we're seeing USM, they're only a 7-point favorite.
Well, and you brought up a good point that I wanted to get to. You talked about how evenly matched up this matchup is, but just take these three facts into consideration real quick, okay?
Okay.
Week one, they both teams. Well, not week one, but they both get obliterated by a powerhouse Power 5 school. Southern Miss lost to Florida State about 66 to whatever.
13.
Thank you. And Arkansas State lost 73-0 against Oklahoma. The next week, the game after that, they both lose. And they lose their home opener, only scoring 3 points. Then they both beat an FCS school pretty convincingly.
Yes.
So now it's going to see two bottom feeders going head-to-head, making the bottom feeder sandwich that nobody wants. Usually we get this matchup later in the year when we play ULM, but this year we're getting kind of an easy test against Southern Miss.
I mean, it's a sandwich with 2 hills on each side. The part of the bread no one wants.
The hill's not that bad.
It's pretty bad. But, it's bad. That's all I'm going to say. But you know what? We have a chance to win. No one expects us to win. I mean, we should come into the game playing loose, because if we're being completely honest, no one in the Sun Belt thinks we're going to win. It's just plain and simple. If you've looked at our team, we've been mean since week 1. No one thinks we're going to win. So play loose. Play Arkansas State football, not the losing kind, the kind that got you a win Saturday. Wow, it's been a long day. But just win. Please win.
It's okay.
We need people in the crowd. We need people out of the Pines into the student section. I mean, what more do y'all want? They're selling beer at games now. I mean, come on. You got to get in the game.
I mean, yeah, but I don't think a lot of them are going to want to pay $20 for a beer. But nonetheless, I do want to ask this, and Jimmy James, I'm going to ask you this as well. What would the conference opener win mean to the Arkansas State Red Wolves? Cooper, we'll start with you.
Boosts confidence in the season. I don't think we've started 1-0 in conference since I've been here. I'm not sure how long it's been since we started 1-0 in conference. If we can just start 1-0, go into UMass, get another win, we're sitting at 3-2. We're back above 500, and we're on the right track to winning the Sun Belt Conference.
James, what about you? What do you think about what a win here in Sun Belt Conference play would do for this team?
It just adds on to the confidence that the team already has going into Saturday. It'll be a big turnaround, 2-2, 1-0 in conference. Like, that's a big step from last year. So, you know, it's just a big confidence booster and a big turnaround for the whole team, the whole program. So.
Right, and I'm sure Mr. Sullivan can fact check this with me, but I do believe this is the first Sun Belt Conference opener that we've had here in Jonesboro in a number of years. I think the last time was 2016.
Yes.
Yeah, 2016, and that game was great as well. But, you know, it's got to add a little bit more flavor and a little bit more anticipation now that we're finally opening up the SBC play.
Another interesting fact?
Tell it to me, brother.
When we opened up in 2016 here, we went on and won the Sun Belt.
We went 8-4 that year. That's the same year we lost to UCA at home.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan was at that game.
And he tells us all the time. He actually told us, or him and Peyton Burr, shout out Peyton Burr,
Yes.
Was talking about that season, comparing that season to this season to between each other when we were coming back from Norman.
Yes, they were like, we started 0-4 in non-conference, and then we ran the table, blah, blah, blah. They were living their glory days, so to say.
It's like good old men do.
Yes.
Well, the only real thing real quick I have to ask Mr. Sullivan and Peyton Burr, does Uncle Sam have your name at the top of his list?
Does he?
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to this game and what it would mean for Arkansas State to win, you know, we do have key injuries. You know, Ethan Hassler, he's a friend of the show. He's a friend of mine. He is out now. I think it's about 3 weeks. But just looking at some of the stats, previewing this game a little bit, we do have more rushing yards, which is, I think it's the first time we've ever had more yards, period, is in a category than the opponent in a long time. They're beating us on the passing yards, which, you know, is kind of contradicting, especially after what I just said about the offensive line. But with the secondary that we have and kind of how we like to stack the box, I do think it is going to be a very exciting game, and I think it's not going to be your typical boring, slow start, 3-3, 6-3, and then one team goes on to score 30-something points. I think it's going to be very evenly matched. I think it's going to be not a shootout, but I think it's going to be a very anticipated game where running backs are going to play a key factor. But speaking of the game, I do want to ask, and James, we're going to get to you so you can, you know, get your last bit out to the audience. But what does the score prediction look like for this game?
Score prediction, I probably said some bull crap on my rant last week, but you know what? I'm going to have A-State winning again. I got a taste of a win. I want more of it. I don't think Southern Miss is a good team. Honestly, they haven't looked impressive at all. But that being said, give me 27-17 A-State.
Okay. James, what about you?
Rubbing the head.
These guys, they proved me wrong. So I'm going with the win, A-State. 24-14.
Okay, I like that. You know, kind of looking at my thing real quick, and by the way, don't take this man anywhere near Tunica, Mississippi if he's got these gambling odds. But my thing is, it's like I said, it's going to be an exciting game. I think if Jalen Rayner is coming out as our quarterback one, I think we win 45-28.
Wow.
But if JT Stroud or Jackson Daly comes out and starts as quarterback, I think we only win by a touchdown coming in at 28-21. However, and I said both of them, but I want to backtrack a little bit. That was my score for Jackson Daly. If JT Stroud comes out as our starting quarterback,
we're losing.
I think we lose 45-6.
Yeah, JT Stroud, no offense, we're going to lose if he starts.
Well, and it's not a disrespect thing. Real quick, it's not a disrespect thing to JT Stroud. I just don't think he fits well in the quarterback system.
Yes.
But guys, this has been another exciting episode of Red Wolf Roundtable. We will see you next Tuesday with the live reaction for the Southern Miss game and previewing UMass. We hope you guys enjoyed. We will see you guys next time. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media. This has been Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV.